Thank you for listening to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with hosts Clara and Jimmy Hinton. If you're new to the podcast, please subscribe and share so you never miss an episode. Android users can find us and subscribe on your Play Music app. Apple users can find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Stitcher. You can follow us on Spreaker. And you can find the podcast on jimmyhinton.org and findingahealingplace.com. Please rate our show, subscribe, and share so that we can spread the word. Let's get into the show. Welcome to this week's podcast with host Jimmy Hinton.
And Jimmy's mom, Clara.
Burnout, the B word. This is part one. We're talking about burnout, and man, as an advocate, do you ever get tired? Do you ever feel like what you're doing is not enough? Do you ever feel underappreciated? Do you ever feel like people could care less that you're out there working to rescue more innocent people from being abused by abusers? If you answered yes to all of those, you're probably experiencing burnout. The burnout rate among advocates is absolutely stunning. I'm in ministry, and I know in ministry we talk about burnout a lot. And the burnout rate in ministry is traditionally pretty high. I don't know what the percentage is on the last study, but I know it's very high. I think in advocacy, at least from what I've seen, it's probably near, I'd say 80%.
That's probably a good guess, Jimmy. I think we can see the waves of those experiencing burnout in advocacy because, you know, you'll just see people drop out for a while and then take a rest and then maybe come back, maybe not. But it's tough. It's really hard. And I think you named all the big B's of burnout. You just feel drained. You get to that point of where you feel like you have nothing left to give. And that's a danger zone. And we want to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the different components. And what really sparked this is, our good friend and patron of the podcast, Kelly Haynes. She put a post out, I think it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yeah. That she is stepping away from advocacy. And, you know, she's kind of been in and out and taking a little break, and then she would come back. And her message was that she's officially stepping away, and, she's going to take care of her family. And I actually, when I read that, I was like, good for you. Like I think probably in her mind, and I don't know, we're gonna interview her for part 2 of this podcast. But if I were to guess, in her mind, she probably felt guilty about that.
I was just going to say the guilt of stepping down, stepping away from being an advocate is horrendous. You feel like you're letting people down. Most of all, you're letting your whole community down. And you also feel like you haven't measured up to what you wanted to be. And it is a terrible feeling of guilt.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, I'm going to get off on a big soapbox here, maybe for the whole podcast, because this is something that actually Jasper Hoffman had talked about this, and I know that you and I had talked about that post that she put about, she said something to the effect of, hey, don't come here to, quote unquote, pick my brain. Right. She's like, I have a certain area where I am an expert in this area. I have a lot of experience, and I have something to bring to the table. I have a service that I offer, and I offer that for a fee. So don't come here and pick my brain, because you don't go to a doctor's office and say, hey, can I pick your brain? You don't bring your children to a doctor and say, hey, I'm not going to pay you, but my goodness, can I pick your brain?
Right.
So I thought it was an excellent post, and it wasn't snarky. It wasn't mean-spirited. She was just making the really strong point that in the Christian community, especially, we are especially good at sucking people down to the bone marrow until they have nothing left to offer. And I think that's a major contributor to the burnout rate among advocates, because advocacy work to begin with is just emotionally exhausting. It takes a lot out of you physically. Trust when I say it puts a strain on your marriage. It's difficult to maintain that balance between taking on, quote unquote, taking on the weight of the world's shoulders, or at least feeling that way, and still maintaining a healthy, happy home life and a healthy, happy relationship with your spouse and with your kids and with your day job. Because I promise you, there are not advocates out here who are doing this by profession. Mm-hmm. I know of not one. No. Because here's the dirty little secret. It does not pay. People are desperate. Mm. Let me rephrase this. Survivors of abuse are rightfully desperate to reach out to people who actually care. They know that they're going to get that with advocates. But the other side of that is that organizations are quick to reach out to advocates and quote unquote pick their brains. And they want the free consults. They want the free blogs. They want all the stuff that we offer for free anyway. That's usually not enough for a lot of people, a lot of organizations. Now, there are some who, they totally get it. And they're like, hey, you have a service that you offer. It's not even a question. We're going to pay you for that service. But what I've found is that the majority of Christian organizations are not wired that way. From megachurch to small church, a lot of these churches want to just pick your brain. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens in advocacy is you're in this really weird position because these same organizations that want to pick your brain also usually don't like what you have to say. And so you end up being painted as an enemy of the church, which is not true. I mean, the advocates who I know, they're pretty blunt. They're pretty bold in what they say. I mean, all of us are, because we see really horrific things day in and day out. And a lot of the churches interpret that, not just churches, not just church leaders, but even fellow Christians. They interpret that as, my goodness, these people are just angry. They've just gotten onto this Me Too and Church Too thing, and it has really made them bitter and angry. And I would argue that's not what's going on. What's going on is we are in the heart of this desperate battle to rescue our kids out of the clutches and out of the mouths of these ravenous wolves. And we see the damage that they cause to these people. And we hear the stories day after day after day after day. And so burnout, I think just under regular routine circumstances, burnout is probably incredibly high. But then you factor into that these people are not getting paid for it. And they're being ridiculed on top of that for something that they're, I mean, a lot of advocates are just physically not well. They struggle with their health because stress consumes them. I find myself eating meals on the run if I eat at all. There are days where I forget to eat lunch because I'm running and trying to keep up with, the regular job. And I know you experienced that too.
I do.
So, it's this dirty little secret that I'm actually kind of encouraged to talk about, because I think we need to talk about it. And I don't hear advocates really talking about this. I think they suffer in silence, a lot of them, and they don't talk about burnout.
Well, sometimes, Jimmy, you don't even realize you're experiencing burnout until it's at the end.
Yeah.
And by then, the exhaustion is so bad that you're so drained, you're so empty that you have nothing more to give, and then it's like the collapse. So what we want to do is just encourage advocates to use a little bit of self-care, to use some wisdom while advocating so that you sustain a balance. And we need that desperately. It's funny that we're talking about this right at this moment, because just this morning I had a conversation with someone, and I said I was referencing you and the hard work that you do. I said, but I know he's okay yet because he still has a good sense of humor. And
you're darn right I do.
And I think that's important, to have people around you too that are kind of watching for checkpoints. You know, have you lost your laughter? Have you lost your smile? Have you lost your zest for living? Are you just all consumed with the advocacy to the point that nothing else matters? That's when it gets a lot scary, I think. That's when we know that burnout is happening, and we need to put those brakes on and take a self-look.
Well, I think be okay with that. I know the one thing that I've really struggled with, this is just me personally, I have taken a major step away from social media, and I post very rarely on both Facebook and Twitter. And there's this constant rat race to, you know, post all these things, and they've got to be clever, and they've got to connect, and you got to worry about, you know, am I going to offend somebody? Is somebody going to take something that I take, and are they going to repost it and, you know, plaster my post all over the place and say that I'm saying something that I'm not? Like, I think about these things because I see it happen
right now. Right.
And, you know, for me, like, you have to constantly be posting, I mean, almost on the hour, if you want to maintain any kind of community. And then Facebook throws in this dumb algorithm thing where if you don't post often enough, they begin to hide your page from people. So there's this constant pressure because of the algorithms, because of what people expect from you to be posting, and it better be quality stuff. You know, so I'm always very careful about what I post, because I'm not just, and I get annoyed by people who just post anything and everything. And, you know, I'm not talking about advocates, just generally people that just spew all this stuff out that has nothing to do with anything. And, you know, it just litters your social media. And I try to be careful not to be that person. So with that said, I've just been so probably burdened lately over the last few weeks, just kind of things mounting where you feel that weight. And I felt like I needed to take a step away from writing. So at my blog, I haven't written since the beginning of December. I used to write at least twice a month. I took a step away from social media. And the thing is, you have to be okay with that. And I think that's part of the problem, is we're so conditioned to give of ourselves that's why we feel guilty. We feel like we're letting people down. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, we're going to lose followers. We're not helping people. We're not giving them information when we could be writing blogs and we could be writing helpful resources. And then I step back and I'm like, the reality is that, you know, I know myself, I have 8 years of blogs that are available on my website. And
that's a lot of writing.
It is. And it's free, and it's available, and it's there.
And it's helpful.
Yeah.
It's
so
helpful.
I think this is one thing that I struggle with, is stepping back, taking a break, and being okay with that. And I wonder how many other advocates are out there who really struggle because we felt this pressure to perform. And I don't know the answer to that, but hopefully this resonates with some people.
I think it will, Jimmy. And several years ago, I was feeling this burnout, not from the advocacy here, but I do grief work. And I was just saturating myself with the burdens and the sorrows of people who had lost their children, to the point where I had lost my smile for life.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, pulled me aside and just said, hey, did you ever think that you need to give yourself permission to enjoy life again? That, and I started thinking about that. And I thought, as I became so empty, I wasn't able to fill anyone else's cup up if my cup isn't full. So I've made it a practice since then, and I continue to live by that I do something every day to replenish myself without guilt, without guilt. And it's the best thing I ever could have done. And, I would admonish all advocates to do that. Take some time out daily just for yourselves to refresh, replenish, recharge your batteries, because it's a horrible thing when the batteries die. You're just left drained.
Well, there's this really old lady who I know who
I'm almost
who gave me some wise advice before, and you may not even. Not saying that you are that lady who's really old, by the way.
Okay, thank you. Feeling better by the second.
But I remember this lady telling me years ago when I first was going into ministry, be careful not to burn out, because people in ministry will tear you up, chew you up, and spit you out, you and your family.
Yep.
And I will reveal it. So you are the lady.
Oh, that's a surprise.
The big reveal here.
Yeah.
So what you told me, I don't know if you remember this, but you said, if you wind up completely burning out and losing your family over ministry, the world will still spin. It'll still go on without you. And we have to remember that.
Right.
Like, certainly we have a role, certainly as part of this great community of advocates and people who are going in and sitting in the trenches with people. We have a role in that, but it's not our sole responsibility to rescue people and to save the world. We can't do it.
Right.
So that's always stuck with me. And I think that's part of what's helped me to remain anchored. And, when I feel that nudge of burnout, to be able to remember that I need to step away, because the world's still going to spin around. Whether Jimmy Hinton's here or not, or whether Clara Hinton's here or not, the world will continue. And there are plenty of good people out there who, they're in the trenches as well. And the world will continue.
Now, we're not saying for all advocates to pull out.
No.
That's not the message. The message is for self-care.
Yeah.
Step back.
And don't allow people to tell you that they absolutely have to have you, and that the people who hound you and harass you by sending you 10,000 emails, be okay with not responding. And, there are people who, I have a queue of emails right now that's just lined up a mile high, and I'll get to them when I get to them, if I get to them. And that's just, I have to do that at this point.
One person.
Right.
I am one person doing the best. And there again, we do the best that we can with what we have, and let the rest go. That's all we can do. Do our best for today. And keep in mind, and Jimmy, that is a sage advice, and I've seen it happen time and time again. The world does go on without us, almost without a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if we have left our families and those closest to us in the trenches alone, then we've lost pretty much, our purpose here.
Yeah.
So we need to, prioritize. And part of that.
And find balance.
And balance is critical.
Very
it's
important.
Absolutely critical. And I still say, I'll keep interjecting, even in the midst of all this horror and sadness and tragedy, we need to find something to laugh about. We have to.
Yeah.
Or, we can't continue on. I feel like laughter is the medicine that we need in the midst of all this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying go giddy laugh about, abuse. That's not at all what I'm saying. But find that way of spending time with little kids, with young kids, or with our elderly, and just laugh and just enjoy life.
Yeah, we do. Well, I suffer through, I should say. This is our family joke. I don't like games. And I'm going to blame you for that because
I have a funny story to tell when you're finished.
Well, we just always went outside and played, and for me that's how I find joy. Sitting in the house all cooped up, playing games where you have to think is not relaxing for me. But my kids and my wife absolutely love games. They love them, and so they kind of rip me. So they'll get out the board games, and they're all excited, and they know that I don't like it, but I try to pretend. It's always for the children, right? And I end up having fun. I mean, I'm not like a Scrooge or anything. It's just not my preference. I'd rather be outside.
Well, I have to interject this. This weekend, I took Jimmy's kids along with two of my other grandkids out to the movies. And on the ride there, Jimmy's one son said, "Graham, can I tell you something?" I said, "Sure." He said, "My dad is just not a movie kind of man." And I said, "Okay." And
yep, they know me well.
Okay. And it's true. We all have our thing. Yeah.
I just don't like being cooped up. I don't like being inside, but that's just me. I mean, that's fine that other people like that. But my point is this. I still take the time and spend that time because it's very valuable. My kids absolutely love playing games together as a family. And so I do it, and I don't do it begrudgingly. We end up always laughing, always having a good time. Oh. And the very strong point I want to make is take time for your family and be present and enjoy their company.
It's so important.
And laugh and have fun. And, you know, they make fun of me and that's fun. Like, it's fun, you know, because my kids joke about how bad I am at playing these games because they know
another joke is you took your daughter out to the track apparently and told her she was to run around X amount of times. And she said, "I thought it was 1 mile and I thought I was going to die." And then afterwards,
she found out we went 2.
Yeah, it was 2 miles. And she said, "Dad didn't tell me that part." So,
well, I thought that 8 laps is a mile, but apparently 4 laps is a mile. So anyway, but it was fun. The whole family went out and we just ran and we laughed and we were out at the track at the football field. And, you know, we just spent an hour and a half out there and the weather was nice and we just went out and played. And it was so fun.
Well spent. And it's necessary time when we do that type of self-care and family time. Yeah. And burnout, when you get to that point, you'll know because you will not want to do anything like that. You will be so entrenched. You will just feel devoid of everything and you lose feeling for life. So that's a danger zone.
Yeah, I think once you reach burnout too, I don't know that I've ever been there. I know I've flirted with that line before. But I don't know that I've ever been officially burned out. But I think what I've seen from other people is that they can never go back into what they were doing before. Once they've reached full burnout, they can never go back and pace themselves at a healthy pace again.
Right, bingo, and that's the danger.
They take very little baby steps, and there's a spark and I'm not saying this happens every time, but you know, generally speaking, I think a spark leaves you because you don't want to push that again. You don't want to wind up there again because it takes a long time to come out of burnout. So that all being said, I think what Kelly's doing is I was actually excited because I don't think that she just burned out. I think she has the wisdom to realize that, you know, there are just some things going on and I just need to take a step away from advocacy and spend time with my family.
Well, she just
and
said.
I love that.
Right,
I love that.
And she has had overwhelming support also from what I'm seeing. And I'm so thankful for that also.
Yeah. You know who else did that? Mary DeMuth. She took
I saw that.
She took, I think it's still on a sabbatical.
Yeah, she is.
And I love that. I think that's fantastic. And I think that's just it's a healthy, fun, hang out with your family, just goof off and enjoy
Read
life.
Books, sit under the stars, enjoy the flowers, take long walks, replenish. God tells us to do that all of the time.
So one of the things that we talked about with our Patreons on an exclusive podcast that's patrons only, we floated the idea with them first to see if there would be any interest for Clara and I hosting a retreat.
What happened to Clara? What's this with the Clara?
Granny.
How about Mom? Okay, or Granny. Okay.
So we just kind of floated the idea just to see if there would be any interest in that. And there was a lot of interest. I got several private messages from our patrons saying that they definitely were interested. They would definitely attend. So we're going to cast that out to a wider audience, and we would love to hear your feedback. And yes, you can email. Don't feel like you have to be guilty if you're sending an email. We may not respond, but we would love to hear from you. And just let us know if a retreat that we hosted would be something that would be beneficial for you. We would gladly do it. We hosted a retreat, I think the last one that we did together, which really was your retreat for your grief group. That was in 2008. And I can't believe it's been that long ago.
I know.
I still have, well, we did one since then. We did one in Ohio.
We did. Yes, we did.
But that retreat was at one of our local camps that is a beautiful, beautiful camp. And I still have so many good memories of that. It was so fun. It was amazing.
That will last.
Yeah. And we still communicate with those people.
We do all of the time.
Yeah.
It was, you can't even put into words what it did for us.
Yeah.
For all of us.
There was laughing. There was crying. There was a lot of team building stuff.
Learning, sharing.
A lot of downtime. Just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Just enjoying it.
Wonderful
being
time.
outside. Being inside, having my sleeping bag shoved full with M&Ms. That was a nice surprise the one night.
Yeah, that was wonderful. We would love to plan and host a retreat with all of you for the main purpose of just growing in friendship and love, and for that good old word replenishment. We need it. Let us know how you feel about this. Would you attend a weekend?
And our thoughts are just to open this up. You know, initially we would cap how many people can go, because obviously you have to limit how many people would go. But to open this up to survivors and advocates, and by survivors I include the spouses of abusers. They're kind of an overlooked, pretty large group of people that I think when people hear survivor, a lot of time they don't think of the spouse of an abuser, but they are survivors themselves too. They're survivors of a different kind of abuse. And so we thought about just including everybody in that, and then having specific talks and just kind of maybe at different points breaking people into groups by their background, and just mix and mingle and have a good time and laugh a lot and
be wonderful.
Enjoy it and spend time with us, and us spend time with you. So anyway, please let us know. Well, our truth bomb is that burnout is real, and if you even think you're getting there, take a step away and take a sabbatical. Enjoy yourself, enjoy your family, and be okay with that. We will cheer you on, we will support you, and we will encourage you in any way that we can. Thank you for tuning into this episode. We'll catch you next round.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast. Thank you to our patrons who make this podcast possible. If you found it helpful, please follow on Spreaker, Subscribe on Google Play Music, Apple Podcast, or Stitcher. If you believe in what we do, consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron, and check out the cool rewards our patrons receive. Share with your friends and tell the world. Join us in speaking out on sex abuse so we can change the tides and prevent abuse.